everyone, and welcome back to season 3 of Commerce Meets Law, a podcast where we talk about various commercial topics and how they interact with the legal profession. Before I talk about all of that and today's guest, I really wanted to talk a little bit about my graduation experience, a little bit of a personal update. For those of you not interested, completely understand, you can skip over. I'll put a timestamp down below so that you can skip to the part where our guest comes into this conversation. But for those of you who might care, who might be a little bit nosy like me, I had my graduation on Tuesday, on the 15th of July, and it was just such a lovely day celebrating with family who I couldn't have done any of this without, whether that's this podcast, which the idea came from my dad, or even 3 years at university, all of my incredible friends who are all they have such bright futures ahead of them. They're all doing such incredible things, but also such different things, which is so cool that, some of them have decided to go into the law, some haven't, some are taking years out to travel, some are doing masters. It's just incredible to see the kind of diversity in what's happening after this, which is so cool. So yeah, that was a lovely day and a lovely moment to celebrate and kind of, finish off the 3 years at Exeter. But without further ado, I want to introduce today's guest, which is someone from down under, all the way from Australia for the first time. It's the first time we've had an Australian guest on the podcast, and it is none other than Mel Story. So Mel is a senior legal leader turned content creator, speaker, and founder of Counsel Media, a modern digital media company for in-house lawyers and other ambitious young professionals navigating their careers. Over the last 15 plus years, Mel has built a legal career across aviation, infrastructure, and disruptive technologies, most recently as head of legal at a global tech company working on cutting-edge AI software. Mel has trained and been part of high-performing legal teams, implemented new tools and tech, negotiated complex commercial deals, advised on competition and regulatory risks, and supported global expansion across multiple markets. But behind all of these incredible titles and milestones, her true passion has always been sharing what she's learned the hard way so that others don't have to do the same. With the aim of doing just that, of sharing everything that she has learned, in this episode, we firstly discuss why Mel decided to become a lawyer, the qualification process that Mel kind of took when she was in Australia and how she got her foot in the door, why she decided to move in-house from private practice and the pros and cons of each, the journey of Counsel Media starting from an Instagram page in 2019 and becoming a multi-platform brand today, and Mel's goals for the future of Counsel Media and of her ambitions as a content creator as well. This was one of the most, I think, raw and authentic conversations that I've had on the podcast for a really, really long time. And Mel's courage and confidence to take a leap into the world of content creation is something that I hugely, hugely admire. So please do check out all of the Counsel Media pages down below. There is the podcast, the Instagram, the TikTok. So please give it a follow and like and subscribe and share and comment and all of that good stuff. Just a quick request before we get into the conversation today. I'd really appreciate if you could kindly give the podcast a follow and a rating on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to these episodes, as it really helps Commerce Meets Law reach more listeners. Without further ado, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you right at the end. Hi Mel, and welcome to Commerce Meets Law. I'm really, really excited to chat to you today, and we've never had anyone on the podcast yet from Australia, so I'm very, very excited to get into it.
Thank you for having me, and I love that I'm your the first guest from Down Under.
Yes, well, hoping for many more after this one. And we always start with an icebreaker on the podcast. So the question is, in your opinion, what is your superpower?
I have a really specific knack for remembering every line of the Office TV show. Like, that is my jam. I have comfort watched the series UK and US all the way through many, 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 many times. Like, it's in there forever. We could just run a scene right now. That's my superpower. It's bizarre, but it has come in handy. We had a state championship trivia contest like many moons ago, and our team, we didn't win, but we got like in the top three because of the trivia and the knowledge around that TV show. So I'm just the biggest fan. There you go.
Wow, I love that. I mean, the million dollar question is, do you prefer The Office UK or The Office
I knew you were
US?
going to ask me that. Both. I can't pick favorites. They both have their place. Just superb.
Okay, okay. We'll take the diplomatic lawyer answer.
Thank you. It depends. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we're going to start off by just talking a little bit about sort of going back to the early phases of your career, just before you decided to step into the legal profession. But since you are our first Australian guest, I wanted to ask you a little bit about growing up in Australia. Since a lot of our audience is mainly based in the UK,
Mm.
it would be really lovely for them to know. So can you tell us a little bit about what your childhood was like and what you enjoyed doing at the time?
Well, I hope I don't disappoint anybody, but we don't actually have pet kangaroos and we don't actually take kangaroos around as transport, which I have heard is like this weird mythology that's out there about Australians. It's
Yeah.
not a thing. I did grow up in the country though. I grew up in a regional town in the middle of New South Wales, 5 hours west of Sydney, not entirely outback, but certainly, the earth is red and it's getting out into a place where people live a quieter and probably a more country way of life. So I grew up at a
Mm.
beautiful, lots of space, roaming around, and lots of family. Everyone was really concentrated in that space. And then when I was 11 for high school, my entire family moved from the middle of New South Wales to like the top of Queensland up in the tropics. And I did my high schooling up there. And that was very different again, being by the beach, having the most beautiful weather. It felt like you're on holidays almost every day. It was very different to that earlier part. And it was a wonderful way to grow up. Lots of sun, lots of surf. I can't surf. I'm not a quintessential Aussie in that way, but I definitely do love to get outdoors and have that space. So growing up, it was all about outdoors, adventuring, family, lots of gatherings, lots of cousins and uncles and aunties, grandparents. Like, I come from a pretty big family and I'm part of a big family myself. So just lots of good family time, I think, is the overarching when I think about childhood memories.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, when people think of Australia, they do think of being outdoors and the beaches and all the
Yeah.
sports. And knowing that there's that family element as well of it is really so nice. And I guess in terms of law, when did that first come into the picture for you? Was it like someone in the family had been in the profession, or was it just something you developed an interest in through reading or talking to teachers?
I mean, I'm pretty typical in this way that I'm the first in my family to go to university, let alone law
Uh-huh.
school. And so, no,
Mm.
there wasn't anyone in the family that inspired me in that way. But I was kind of that typical girl coming through high school who was good at English, really good at drama. I enjoyed legal studies and the humanities subjects that I was taking. I got good grades and was pushed towards a path of, well, you're a smart kid, so law or medicine.
Yeah,
That was
the
the kind
classics.
of the classic options at the time. And this was 20 years ago, and I don't know if it's changed too much. It may have, but that's what we had. And the thought of blood, and it was an absolute no from me. And the law just spoke to being able to be like getting paid to talk, I think is like my ideal, truly my idea. I'm like, that's just brilliant. Like, where's the catch? So that was really the path that I went. I can't say it was more led from a place of passion or purpose or social justice or anything like that. I wish I was a 17-year-old that wanted to change the world in that way. But no, I just wanted to chase something that I think felt kind of prestigious. And the adults that I told were always like, oh, she's studying law. I always enjoyed that feeling when I told the adults in the room. So I was inspired to go down that path, and for a number of reasons, but I guess it just felt like a good fit. at the time. And, I started straight after high school. Pretty quickly, we can go straight into law school here. There's no undergraduate piece, which is interesting choice. But yeah, I was like 18, moved away from home, and off I went into the world of law.
Yeah, and that first point you said, I think that that's such a realistic perspective because I think that now a lot of people look at social media or look at people's stories and think they have to have this like ingrained passion at the age of like 16, know exactly, what the rest of their life is going to be like. And I think sometimes doing lots of things and trying lots of things out is what kind of realize like makes you realize what your passion actually is. It's very difficult
Mm,
to know that without having had any experience or any kind of experiences within a particular industry. So I think that part's really nice, that you can discover your purpose and your passion as
yeah.
you go along. You don't have to know it at the age of 17, which is really
No,
difficult for a lot of people.
absolutely not. I don't think many people do. I really
Yeah.
don't. There's maybe 1%. I think that we grow as we grow, especially during the 20s. Like that decade is just so formative and so
Yeah.
crucial for trying lots of different things, for figuring out
Mm.
who you are and who you want to be in the world. And I think that process, if you're growing and evolving as a human, that process never ends, and it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Like what a beautiful gift to have that journey and to constantly be shedding back the layers of conditioning and who you thought you were meant to be, to come back to who you really were, and how you're supposed to add value to this world, to your communities. That's an ongoing process. You don't know that necessarily, and it's amazing if you do, but I certainly didn't. I was just
Yeah.
going by the whims of what sounded kind of good and made sense. It just made sense. But as I developed and evolved, and then into my 30s as well, different life experience and things come up, you try different things. I can't
Yeah.
say that I've been too crazy. I haven't gone off and taken, I don't know, quit the job and went to Kenya to teach, or I've stayed within law. So I can't say I've been entirely risky until much more recently. But it takes time to try those things and experiment. And I think that when we give ourselves permission to give ourselves that time, it just takes the pressure off. When I speak to people in their 20s, which is every day, which is what
Yeah.
I love. It's literally that's my passion, that's my purpose. That didn't come about until, in the last few years. So it takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's nice to know that as well, that, you can just take your time to do that. And there is
Yes.
no like rush to do it, all at once and do it all at the same time. And to give some context to you and our listeners as well, in the UK, it's a similar process of it's not like America, you have to do an undergrad and then go to law school. You can go
Mm,
straight away at 18. And then if you want to go down the solicitor path, which is kind of working for a company or a law firm, you would do the SQE, so that's the
hmm.
solicitor's qualifying examination, and then you have 2 years of qualifying work experience, which can be, or traditionally used to be a training contract, but is more recently can be any sort of legal work experience to get you that qualification, essentially.
Mm.
So I guess for people who are listening, can you tell us a bit about what the process is like in Australia and what your journey was like to getting that like first role within the legal industry?
It is similar and different. You get to the end of your law degree and then you realize that you're not a lawyer. You're like, oh,
Yes.
there's a whole other, this is
Yeah.
entirely different thing that I have to do. Nobody told me about this. No, but really, it's not really something that, and I certainly wasn't smart enough to ask the question. I'm like, oh, Bachelor of Laws, I can go to the court now. Absolutely not. There is another step. So the most common is the PLT, or practical legal training. It can change depending on full-time, part-time study, but similar to, it won't be more than a year. So it's shorter than what you might experience.
Okay.
And interestingly, the practical work experience element, I believe, is it's not it's not very long, and it's certainly not 2 years. And it's an interesting model. I don't know. We used to have clerkships and something that was very, very similar to that 2 year training contract. That's shifted. There are some places where you can still do that, but if you go to one of the big you have Magic Circle, we kind of have the top six. If you go to a big law firm, they will pay for your PLT, which is an extra, like $10,000. They will pay that for you, and then you will do your work experience there as a graduate for a year, and then you'll move into the firm while you rotate around. So that's the path that I went through. I was lucky. Like, I often don't like to say I was lucky, but in this case, I was lucky. I was not meant to get a spot in a graduate program. I didn't go through the clerkships, the summer, the vacation. I tried, but my grades just weren't good enough to make the cutoff. And now that I know that, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have bothered applying. But I didn't realize there was no real transparency around that. And I didn't really
Yeah.
have anyone guiding me. So I didn't make that round and go through the normal pipeline. I finished law school without any prospects, not a thing. So I went to Europe and backpacked around for as long as my money would last because I didn't have anything else to do. And I figured, you know what, I hadn't taken a gap year between high school and law school, so that was my gap year. And then when I came back, I just pounded the pavement to try and get anything, a foot in the door, any door. I printed off my resume 180 times. I dropped it off to all of the law firms and barristers' chambers in the Brisbane CBD. And I did that throughout the whole day. It was the most exhausting day. I just dropped it off and said, hi, I'm a recent graduate looking for a job. If there's any roles going, paralegal, clerk, reception, admin, baby lawyer, I don't mind. I just needed to get in a foot into the industry. So I did that for a day. I didn't get any callbacks, not one callback. The next week, I think I was going to go to the outer suburbs and try again because there's plenty of suburban law firms out there. So what happened though is that a call came through from my university career development officer. She knew I was back from Europe and looking for a job. She had helped me with my resume, just getting it nice and spruced up. And she said that one of the really big firms, national commercial firm, is looking for extra graduates to start next month. Would I be interested in interviewing? I was like, oh my gosh. I dropped off my resume, to their fancy foyer in their fancy building last week to the receptionist that
Yeah.
probably threw it in the bin. But this was the back way of getting a foot into that door. I did interview, and then I was able to start like the next month. And it was entirely unconventional.
Mm.
Probably unheard of now these days, I'm not sure, but it set me up for a number of things. And I didn't think that level of early career training in that type of firm was available to me because I just didn't have those really, really high distinction marks and grades that they look for. And I mean, they weren't bad. I was like a credit average. It was fine, nothing to write home to, but it was not going to get me into that big end of town. But I snuck in anyway and had the most severe case of imposter syndrome for the whole time that I was there.
Wow. I mean, I think that, even in the UK in that case, there are a lot of ways now that even if you don't have the best academic grades, you can still, make an application and things like that. But I think there's still a barrier to a lot of the top firms in
Mhm.
terms of even if it's like say one module that you've done that hasn't been up to that standard,
Yeah.
of unless you have a really, really good reason or like a mitigating reason for why that was the case, it's very difficult to get even past that initial application stage. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think that that is a big issue that a lot of people do face because they think that that shouldn't define them. That that doesn't mean
Mm.
they can't perform. But when you can't get past like probably the AI, which is scanning your
It-
initial
yes.
application,
Yes, it is. I'm
it's
sure of
so
it. Yeah.
difficult. You think, oh, when I speak to a human, I can convince them. Like I'm going to a law firm, I can do this. But if you can't get to that, it's very difficult for so many people. And I think, like you say, sometimes you just got to take any opportunity that comes through and try and
Hmm.
make the most of that. Especially with the industry getting, I think, more and
Oh,
more competitive.
entirely. It was competitive when I was coming through. Like it really was. I felt that. I understood the pipeline of getting all of these hyper intelligent, hyper competitive, type A personalities, putting them all into the one law school. Well, not the one, we have 35 around the country here, but popping them all into these little cohorts and then getting them to just go to battle over very limited places. The supply and demand didn't work, and it still doesn't. And
Yeah.
I have, there's systemic issues around how it's set up. I do think it's set up to maintain elitist, classist, and discriminatory practices. I really do. I don't think that they want to let everybody be able to show up. I don't think, very generally speaking, that they want to look at diverse backgrounds, diverse schooling, diverse ways of thinking. It's just not what they're selling. And if you don't fit that mold, too bad, go somewhere else. And that's business, that's commercial. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. But I do think that you can be aware of it, and you can vote with your feet. You can align with your values or not. And as an in-house lawyer, I get to choose what firms I work with. And I know increasingly numbers of senior GCs and general counsels, kind of that head of the in-house department, they are looking at firms that align with the values of the company. And that goes to the types of people that they work with, the types of practices. Now, that won't be the case everywhere, but I see a shift. I really do. And it's slow. It's slow, but it's happening, because when the buyer of the services requests a change and actually asks for the data on, gender parity of equity partners in the partnership, not just salary partners, but the equity partners, when the buyer of the services asks for an update on the equitable briefing of barristers, are you taking our work to an equal number, of representative, of trying to align with the values of the company that I work for, which is also aligned in that way too. So when that happens, that shifts the dynamics. If the people that have the money require a certain thing, and when you're going to tender for work, and that's the type of thing that they want to see, well, at the end of the day, these things are slow. Progress is slow, but the money talks, and I'm always encouraging my cohort of kind of elder millennial managers that are starting to step into spaces of leadership, who actually get to make the decisions of who they work with and where they spend their money, to just have a think about how they can be a better corporate citizen.
No, and I think that it is important as well, because especially from a UK perspective, there's the kind of program so I entered a competition a couple of years ago, hosted by an organization called Aspiring Solicitors, and their entire motive is to encourage diversity within the profession. And so they give people opportunities to do vacation schemes, which are like summer internships, which then potentially get you a job offer at law firms, and that really gets people in, regardless of your socioeconomic background, your academics, your if you're neurodivergent, all those sorts of aspects, it really factors it in.
That's so good.
And I think that that's such a key. But what you realize when you get into the firms, and that is, yes, actually diversity is definitely increasing at the bottom of the pyramid, but if you go to the top, there's still that change which needs to be seen, whether that's in terms of gender, in terms of race, in terms of disabilities, in terms of sexuality. And I think that is, like you say, it's only going to happen when people who are sort of the generation just above us are entering into those leadership roles, and can make those changes. And I want to go back a little bit to your story of, you mentioned how you felt imposter syndrome as you walked into that firm. Can you tell me a little bit about your biggest takeaways from working as a junior lawyer within a commercial team? What was the couple of things that you learned that have really stayed with you?
I mean, I learned that you never send an email without the attachment, or you will feel like your entire world has imploded and you're an absolute waste of space who should never have dared to walk this earth. Like, I learned that I have predisposition towards anxiety that I didn't previously realize that came
Yeah.
out because I was in an environment that was really intense and surrounded by, pressure cooker of personalities like that. So I started to figure out, oh, I'm freaking out about, I'm checking my emails I'm like, what is going on here? So I started to really get a sense of how I was in that environment. I learned the importance of the attention to detail, to being thorough, to going to the bone on issues, and not coming back until you've looked everywhere at
Yeah.
every possible thing. And I mean, that is a high bar, but that's the excellence that is drummed into you, and is the type of skills that that get honed. I think I also learned my resilience. Honestly, the number of late nights and things that were out of my control, being
Yeah.
kind of 5 p.m. an email comes in and it's we'd like it by the morning, and it's like, oh, okay, better cancel grandma's birthday dinner because I'm not making it. And you haven't got that control over your schedule. If you do go to the event, or you kind of do go with what was planned, you feel like you're letting the team down, and there's a bit of shame and guilt that would come up for me around that, because they're all staying, they're all ordering in their takeaway dinner again. And I think that I struggled to I definitely didn't have any boundaries, but I felt so grateful to be there that I just went all in, did it all. And there was some big hours, some big time, just like, oh my gosh, sometimes I thought it's not even worth going home. I should just sleep here and have a shower and like go again. Like it was intense. And then I was in the M&A corporate advisory front end. So then other times there was no work at all. It was like
Mm.
feast and famine, which is tended to be the deal cycle at the time. It was all or nothing. And the resilience and my ability to just not crack it and just burst into tears at 1 a.m. when a senior associate redlines a paper, email that I had drafted, to turn it back to what they had made me change it to in the first place. Or I'm like, are you messing with me? I think is a testament to my ability to just suck it up. And I don't know if that's actually a great thing in the end, but I made it through, I guess. So
Yeah.
that's my big takeaways from that time.
No, for sure. And I think that again, this is a very, very topical thing, but you've probably seen a lot of articles, whether that's on LinkedIn or shared on newspapers, about Gen Z lawyers entering big law firms, entering
I
private
love to
practice.
see it.
And there's
I
so
know where
much
you're
of
going with this.
yeah, yeah, because as you were talking about, and as someone who's about to enter that space, I think it's kind of scary to think about a lot of the stereotypes or misconceptions that people already feel like they have about Gen Z lawyers, and apparently their ability to think that work-life balance is so important that they're not going to stay behind, or things like that. And those kind of, I guess, the myths around it to some extent, which is true, and you can debate whether that's right or wrong, but I guess from your perspective of having done that, of having sacrificed, whether that was grandma's birthday or those family dinners to work, do you think there's value in doing that in that stage of your career? Or would you to some extent agree with the idea that actually, no, we do need to put those boundaries in, even at the very, very beginning?
Mm. I think it's pretty individual. I think it's a personal choice. It's
Yeah,
there's pros and cons.
yeah,
You're sacrificing. If you go all in, you are going to sacrifice time at the gym, your health,
yeah,
meal prepping, so that you might not eat as nutritionally as you might have otherwise. Times with friends and family, that's a sacrifice, and everybody has a different balance of what's acceptable
mm,
for them. And I
mm,
think that there are kind of glass balls and rubber balls. You don't want to drop the glass balls. You can drop the rubber balls and pick them back up. And some of those things, especially in your 20s, like health, it's kind of okay if you're not like on it as much as you want to be for a year or two. That's even longer. That's okay. You can kind of make that up later and get back into your
mm,
habits later. That's fine. Life is long. It's all good. But when it comes to some of those more precious values around friends and family, that's an individual choice. I
yeah,
look back now and I think it worked out well for me, because I did I did the bare minimum for me to know that it wasn't going to be for me long term. And so I went in, I made the most of the experience. I looked around, I went down to the Sydney office for some time. I had a client secondment so that I even figured out what in-house was, because otherwise I would have had no idea. I was doing extra studies, which I paid for and did on my own time to prepare myself to go and apply for the in-house roles, because I knew I wanted to go that way. Obviously, I couldn't tell the firm that, but I was preparing then, and it took me, a year or so. But I was comfortable to leave that environment knowing that I hadn't really left much on the table. I had met everyone. I had made great relationships, people I still speak with weekly, friends. I've been to the weddings of people that I was in the grad group. I really went all in and made the most of the experience with full enthusiasm. But it was like a flash in the pan and I was out. So for me, doing it that way, I was able to make some sacrifices that, it wasn't for the longest time. And I think for me, it paid off in the end. But I do, I hear what you're saying. And I think that that's an individual choice. To go in thinking that it will be 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, is probably slightly naive. I wouldn't expect. I just can't see a world where, and it comes and goes depending on whatever work is going on. You get the shiny brochures at the cocktail event. You get the lovely spiel from HR when you're onboarded as a grad. It's all just very red carpet and it's just glorious. But you got to look around at the associates and like a few years ahead and just have they gone outside recently? Like, how do they look? Are they looking well? I don't know. Maybe not. It's like, what's behind what they want you to see? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. You are essentially, rewarded for the volume of your input and how many hours you can bill, rather than the complete opposite, which is what you experience in-house, which is the value of the impact of your output. They don't care how long it took you. The business could not care. They just want it done well. They want it done right. They want it to be strategic and commercial. And if it took you 15 minutes or 15 days they do not care. So it's a completely different shift. But when you're operating an environment that, glorifies volume of input and hours, and there's only 24 hours in the day, well, that creates an environment where the competition comes out. The people that are seen to be the best are the ones that are billing above and beyond. And that's just hours in the chair. And if you love it and you're obsessed with it and you're so client focused and just living and breathing that world, it comes easy. If you're in the litigation team and you're looking through documents around an interesting case, you're in the M&A team and due diligence on a really interesting merger, something cool is happening, IPO on the ASX or the stock exchange, that will feed people. They don't care to do 10, 12, 15 hours in the desk, go home, shower, pat the dog, get back out. That can be an adrenaline. I've seen it. That can be an adrenaline. I don't know how sustainable that is, but it can be something that's very passionate and very fueling for a lot of young people. And if that floats your boat, you do you. But it's not going to work for all people, and you don't really know till you get in there. But I try to be as honest and transparent as I can. I don't want to scare anyone away because every experience is different. I think people need to go in a little bit more and understand what the trade-off is with transparency. Understand that if they do kind of a 2 or 3 year tour of duty, they get that blue check mark, they get that nice big fancy firm name. It opens doors. It just does. It still does. That can be the trade-off that you're willing to make for the short term. But if you know what that means and how you can assess that for your life at the time, I just feel like people won't be as blindsided, rather than trying to pretend that everything's amazing. And, the TikTok glamification of, day in my life in big law. I'm like, babe, you were crying for all of the times that you're not filming. And I know, and I love those girlies. Like, I am that girly, and I see that and I love it, but it's romanticized and I think it's dangerous, and I just can't. I'm like, girl, we both know you're crying in the bathroom between takes, and you're doing this as a creative outlet, which I love because that's what I do, and I see it and I get it. but let's not pretend that it's matcha and stilettos and like it ain't. Maybe one day of the month, but no, that's not it. And I
Yeah.
find it disturbing, to be honest. It's actually kind of gross. It's misleading. So time
No,
will
for
play out on
sure.
that. Time will play out. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And I'm not saying that I haven't fallen prey to that culture myself, but I've had to check
Yeah.
myself along the way and adjust the way that I show up online as I've realized, oh, wait a minute, this is glamorizing something that's not always glamorous. So we got to be
Mm,
careful.
no, for sure. And I actually, going back to that point of the glass versus rubber balls, I actually love that analogy because I think it really puts into
That's not mine. I
perspective.
stole that from someone else.
Well, whoever it is that came up with the analogy, it's a brilliant one. But I think it really rightly describes the fact that not no matter what job you go into, there's always going to be a trade-off, and it's not
Hmm.
about the fact that there isn't going to be one. It's what you choose for it to be. And
Yeah.
also, it doesn't have to last forever. Like
No,
you said, a
absolutely
lot of
not.
people go in house, or they start something of their own, or
Yes.
they go into an entirely different industry, or they go into something that's law adjacent. And I think that there's always options, and also, like you said, some people continue to thrive in private practice and go
Hmm.
up to partner and love doing that. And all of those are great options and fine for you. But I think,
Yeah.
yeah, going into it with knowledge and not thinking that it's going to be like whatever the TikTok girlies are showing, which is so aesthetically pleasing to look at.
It's
But just
beautiful.
until you don't believe it, that's fine.
It's
Until
so
you're just
beautiful.
watching it like
But I
entertainment.
know because I've seen the other side,
Yeah,
but
that's
not
what I
everyone
mean.
does.
Yeah.
The entertainment, the aspiration, it's beautiful. It's lovely. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to talk about the empire that you have built with Counsel Media, and all that you are continuing to do, because I think that it's so important for us
Yeah.
to talk about that side of it as well, especially as content creation and that side of law is also increasing, and there's more and more people doing it. Before we get to that, I just want to talk a little bit more about going in house and that aspect, because it's a big part of what you do, and
Hmm.
you've been in that space for so long.
Yeah.
Going from working in private practice to, I know you've had a couple of different roles within in-house teams. Can you tell us a bit about the key differences between the two that you felt from your experiences, and why you think that in-house can really work for some people?
It's an entirely different way of practice. When you're in private practice, you are working across the T, I guess the top T of lots of different clients. You could
Mm,
be a banking client, it could be a mining client, it could be, lots of different clients and lots of different industries. But that vertical is subject matter expertise deep down into just one area of the law,
yeah.
commercial litigation, and even subsets of that, banking and finance, planning and environment, privacy, employment law, right? You just know so much about that narrow, but you apply it
Right.
across across the T into lots of different industries and clients. It's the complete
Mm,
opposite for in-house. It's the complete opposite. You need to know a little bit about a lot on the top. You need to know a little bit about privacy, employment, banking, a bit of M&A, corporate governance, shareholders, directors' duties. The list goes on and on and on. You need to know a little bit about a lot. But
mm,
you go very deep and narrow down one company, just one client, just one industry. So for me, when I went in-house first time was at an airport. So it was infrastructure, construction, aviation, commercial. It was a lot more to it than I initially thought, but it was airport operator. And then I moved to a tech company that was in the B2B cloud computing space. And then again to another B2B tech, but more around software distribution. So same, but a little different. And in each of those companies, it was, I would just be immersed and completely obsessed with the industry. I learned the most interesting things about runways and asphalt and wildlife near the runway, and cooling towers on top of the airport. Oh my gosh, like the VIP room in the international airport and how they manage that. Like the nuances of the industry was fascinating. The governance, the government regulation, all of that is huge. and the international regulation around airspace and oh my gosh, it was massive. But the moment that I moved into a tech company, it was like, right, let's get rid of that. And now I need to learn about the internet, fiber optic cables. Oh, submarine cables. Wow, that's a thing. There's actually this whole network of them across the seabed around the world. I had no idea. Data centers, routers, like really trying to understand where the internet lives and how to connect into it from around the world. So that is when I just got to nerd out and needed to know a little bit about a lot on the law and went deep on the client. There are many other aspects. The other big one is that you don't bill your time in-house. You don't have to do 6-minute billables because it's completely irrelevant. I haven't heard of an in-house team that does that for a very, very long time. I'd be shocked. There are some teams that will semi-record what you're vaguely working on, like the effort and the value of the matter you're working on for different data points. And I think there's some common sense to that, but it's not in 6-minute, because it's just one client. They've got your whole time for the whole year. That's your salary. So it's a very different way of working. You get to work with different people. You're not surrounded by lawyers every day, sitting next to accountants, salespeople, website, software engineers, marketing. Oh my gosh, it's a very different way of working, and it very much suited my style, my brain, much more than trying to be an absolute nerd on an area of the law. That I struggled with that. It just wasn't my forte.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, this is just a little preview to everything that Mel puts out from, like the podcast.
There is more if they want to know. It is all online. You have been at this for about 5 years now, which is probably a good segue for you.
Which is a great segue. You guessed my segue. It's like you do this. It's like you've done a podcast before.
It's like I've done a podcast before.
And speaking of podcasts, you have one incredible one of your own, and alongside so many other platforms. So going back to, and there's a lot of people who listen who are also creatives and want to have something alongside their day job per se, which is not really a day job, but whatever they do during the hours of the day and then on the side.
I get it.
A little bit about having started Counsel Media as just an Instagram page back in 2019. Where did that idea pop into your head? Why did you think at the time that, this is something that I want to do?
I had a blog before that, which was more fitness focused, and I had an Instagram and Snapchat too, actually. Just a trip down memory lane. But I had already been sharing online in a different format, and I missed it because I wasn't doing the fitness stuff anymore. And I was just obsessed with showing up, creating content, Instagram evolving new features, then Reels came on and then Stories came on. I'm like, this is amazing. And I had like repressed creative theater nerd energy that could not be held down. And then there was this platform. And at first it's like my mom and my bestie and a couple of, really great people. And I'm just like chatting to them. And then truly it was like 16 people. And then it just went from there, and I found my voice and I found my style. And I mean, that's an evolving process, but I just loved it. And then I thought to start a podcast because I've always wanted to know how to make one. I was just so curious. I love podcasts, and I just fundamentally curious about how you make one. COVID lockdown happened, and then I Googled how to make a podcast, and I just followed the steps, and it was like bootstrapped. It was so dinky. It was bad audio. It was like free everything, Audacity software to just, try and figure it out. And I thought that it would be a good opportunity to network with people while we were all on lockdown. And so I would just interview other in-house lawyers, because I normally would go to conferences and things and meet people. And I was, a little extrovert who was at home. I was like, I want to talk to people. So I did that. And I also thought it would help position me as a bit of a thought leader in the industry as I was kind of coming up to that mid-career. It was a bit selfish in a way, because I'm like, I'm going to get to meet some of these awesome people that I would otherwise not really get to approach. They'd be like, who's this Australian chick that wants me wants to have a virtual coffee, if I could come to them and say, hey, I'd love to like have you on my podcast. I mean, I haven't been rejected yet. I just haven't. It's like people love to come on, and I mean, here I am. You've asked me, I'm like, I'll come and talk about myself. Okay. And it's about sharing everything that I wish I knew when I was earlier in my career. That's literally all I'm doing. And if it's of value to some people, then that's epic. And if it's not so valuable, that's okay too. But I have some pretty good data now that there is value there, and that people aren't sharing, and people don't ultimately, it's not because they're bad, it's because they're busy and they're just trying to get, their own way through. But I can't not, as I step up into new spaces, I can't not want to bring people along with me and to throw the net back down and just be like, right, come on. If you want to, I mean, if you don't, that's fine. You can get out of the net, but come with me. Let me show you what I've learned so that you don't have to make the mistakes that I made. And I've made them all, just about every single one, and some of the big ones more than once, because it takes me a while to learn my lessons sometimes. That's just who I am. I'm, the eldest of 5 children. I am a big sister. I am a leader. I'm a bit bossy. I'm a little bit of, I'll go ahead and figure it out so that I'll report back so that no one hurts themselves because I love you. Maybe it's my love language. I'm not sure. I'll unpack it with my therapist next week. I don't know, but it is who I am. And as I've grown into that woman more and more, I can't not share and do it in this modern communications platform that we have. And now I'm entering a stage where I want to give other people the platform to share as well. People that have diverse voices and experiences that maybe haven't got the skill to really get themselves out there. But I can say, hey, come on, come up here, tell us your story, because it's going to be different to mine. And that is a gift. And that again helps other people who align with the person who might be telling it. So that's for me now, that the stage I'm entering into, it's going, I hope, move beyond just purely law. I'm deeply passionate about this like cohort of younger people that are coming through that just want to shake it up because it's not working for them. It hasn't worked. It's not. And I feel like as this millennial leader, I'm like, right, I agree. It's not working. Let's burn it to the ground and start again. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's possible, but in some way that fires me up daily. I've just got to figure out how to channel that passion and how to pay my bills along the way. I don't know. I'll figure it. It's early days. It's early days.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking of paying your bills, you did this for a long time, for about 6 years now, I guess, since you started the page in 2019, alongside your day job, whatever it is that you're working on within the different in-house roles. And, just recently you decided to go in on it full time. And I think that can be a scary prospect for a lot of people when whether that's a business they're building, or like that can be like a tech startup, it can be a creative platform, anything like that, where they think, oh gosh, if this doesn't work, what am I going to do? I guess in your mind, what gave you that, kind of sign that, yes, it's time, I can do this, let's just take a bet on myself?
It took me a long time to get to that point. And I've probably been like ready for a lot longer than I would give myself credit for. The fear of doing the scary thing was no longer as big as the discomfort of staying where I just wasn't meant to be. Right. And I pushed, like I white knuckled like a boss for a long time so I could just like sort out my life, get some financial goals sorted, get a little bit of savings to the side. I also wanted to tick some more career goals and try to make my way up to a certain point. So it was all working quite well, but I'm just working with this side hustle along the way, knowing in my heart of hearts, eventually, could I actually take the leap? I didn't know if I actually could, but then at some point, it's an invisible line, it tripped and I had to. And I needed to completely, talk about it with friends and family. I needed to like journal. I needed to be practical. I needed to, at the end of the day, decide that like we only get one life. Like for real, we're only here for a pretty short amount of time. I wasn't here for a long time. I'm not going to be here for a long time after. I've got this little window. I need to try. No day is promised. No days, I don't know what's going to happen. None of us do. I have to try this thing that's in me, that was sent to me for whatever reason to try. I have to honor that, because the discomfort of not doing that was just painful. And it's all I would think about. And it's all I wanted to do. And I don't think that's fair to what became in my mind completely unfair to my employer. I'm like, they're just not getting my full creative energy because it's over here. So it became, I don't know, I don't even know if I could pinpoint it.
Switch.
There was a switch, and there was no turning back. And then I went through the process of resigning and then working out my notice and, not burning bridges. There was no drama. There's none of that. I don't do it. I'm classy gal most of the time. Try to, end how you started. It's the end of a relationship, a transaction, time for money, see you later next, but no hard feelings. I just need to go all in on this and see what happens. But girl, we are week 2. So who knows? I hope this ages well. Yeah. I really do, because I've been really open about what I'm doing. So if I fail publicly, but that's kind of fine as well, because worst case, I run out of money. I can't make it work. I can go and be a lawyer again, or I can do something else. That a worst case is actually amazing. And I have a huge amount of privilege in that, and we'll see.
I'm sure you're going to be fantastic. And we've had a couple of creators on the podcast, some who have completely left the law to join and to kind of go into the creative industries, and some who are still balancing it. And I remember speaking to one of them and talking about the idea of relevance, that a lot of people feel that the reason they're making content is because they have this day job, and so they have content to make about
that. I had that too, definitely.
Yeah,
I felt that
authority.
Yeah.
I guess, do you fear at all that the fact that you don't have that so-called day job anymore means that there isn't that relevance? Or do you think that since there is the podcast and there's the idea of bringing other people on, that to some extent you still continue in that way?
It's a fear, but I also I don't care anymore. I have to try. I hear it's an identity crisis, and I've been through it. I've had to deconstruct it all. Like, oh, who am I if I'm not a lawyer? Oh my God, I called myself the in-house lawyer. Oh God, I better change that. Like, you can't, you get into your head about it. I think really it will be a testament to my ability to storytell, to connect with people, to bring value, irrespective of me being a lawyer. And if I can, then that's awesome. If I can't, then it was that people just wanted to see me. I don't know. But see, they didn't even see much because I couldn't even show a lot. You can't show a lot of what you do. So I'm actually being more open than ever before.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Mel. It was so lovely to speak to you. And
Thank you.
We've had a really honest and raw conversation. And
that's
what we try and
music to my ears. And let's do this again in a year and see where I'm at, because it's
a deal.
Fabulous one way or the other. I'll have more stories one way or the other.
And on that note, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and a massive shout out to Mel for coming on Commerce Meets Law. If you enjoyed this episode, please do let me know by emailing commercemeetslaw@gmail.com or with a DM on Instagram @commercemeetslaw. And you can also reach out to us on our website, which will be linked down in the description. Finally, for access to more content, do check out the Commerce Meets Law YouTube channel and our TikTok. For now, take care, goodbye, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.